I'm not the expert either, but take a very interesting view into this topic, and I have an excellent panel this afternoon to talk about digital banking first. Andrej, hello. You're the Chief Retail Officer and Transformation Officer for Santander in Poland.
Yes, Santander Bank in Poland is the second biggest bank in the country, 4.5 million customers, 500 branches and an omni-channel strategy. And I have the privilege of leading the transformation of that bank into the digital future.
So you're the most important change manager and innovation leader with regards to digital.
Okay, thank you.
We're interested to hear from you this afternoon. Georgina Smallwood, N26, you're a challenger bank. A big fintech player nowadays?
Yes, we are. So N26 is a globe. We call ourselves a global bank. We're in 26 markets. We have just over 5 million customers globally, 250,000 of which are in the US, where we entered about 4.5 months ago. And my role there is to look at all of product development, design and research globally to make sure that we have a consistent presence and we're kind of pushing the boundaries as far as the financial experience is concerned.
Okay, and Jakub Kaślicki, you're head of digital banking applications, so you're the technical expert from PKO Bank in Polska.
Yeah, yes, I've been leading the team developing our digital banking applications for the last 8 years, and we are doing our best to prepare the bank for the next wave of innovation. We are pushed now by the challengers. I've just talked to Georgina that N26 is already present in Poland, so I need to check it. Yeah, we are trying to make the biggest bank in Poland as nimble and agile as possible.
Well, I'm a wholesale banking expert and financial markets expert, so working for NatWest Markets as CEO, but in the past I was leading innovations and also international retail, so I'm a little bit familiar with the topic, but I'm asking the questions today and hopefully the audience as well, because I think it might be very interesting to hear from them what are the day-to-day experiences and the challenges they are facing. And I think we have a nice example of the fintech challengers or building your own digital solutions. And who's going to win?
Is it a question to me?
No, it's a question.
Okay.
To you, yes.
I think. Well, I can speak from the experience of Poland and Europe, where I've been working most of my career. I think looking at Poland, where we had this phenomenon in our banking industry. Like 15 years ago, there was this bank called mBank. It was a purely internet bank 15 years ago. And it was quite successful. And it actually forced all the typical banks to become digital banks over this period of 15 years. So I think N26 is not going to have an easy time in Poland.
Will you bar them?
Challenge laid. I think it's interesting. I think a lot of the conversation over the last 2 days has very much been about kind of the fintech ecosystem, and then the banking world where there's all of that functionality within the bank. And obviously, I play a slightly different card in that. I mean, we are an everyday account, but we don't have anywhere near the amount of product sets that a lot of you guys have. When I think about fintech and these, I think we talked about it a bit before, and it was definitely in Ron's presentation, and is this world where there's this proliferation of solutions, and not all solutions need a banking license and deposits to work. And so we're kind of coming from this world where the bank was this one solid entity that someone had a relationship with, to now this proliferation of all these different services, and the user is changing at the same time. So the user is now used to instant responses and amazing customer journeys from all of the social media that they interact with. TikTok, I also posted a picture on TikTok before of a banking conference talking about TikTok. Thought it was fantastic.
What makes your functionality so special? Last night we were having drinks and you showed me how it was working, and when you were having your coffee and you could drill down exactly to the coffee place, you could even send me an advice of where to go, and the ranking of this is the best coffee place you could have your coffee.
So I mean, I think from a user's perspective, all of these different services and the experience is the bit that connects them all. Right? So, and I don't think it's whether the fintech is going to win or whether it's the bank is going to win, it's then who's going to aggregate the experience of all of the services. And that may well be a bank. That's not to say a bank can't do it, but it could also be something else. It might be N26, it might be something that we haven't seen yet. It's probably something that we haven't seen yet. But what I mean when I talk about the experience and going through kind of how we design our app, it's not purely for the financial product outcome. So if someone makes a transaction, the delight of the transaction at Starbucks is not just that the transaction went through, which I think is traditionally how we've looked at it. The delight is, why did they pick Starbucks and why didn't they pick Nero next door? Mm-hmm. And what about that is important to them, and are they collecting Starbucks points? So why can't you see your points through the transaction? And follow that, we talked a lot about journeys here, but follow that journey through from the user's perspective. Why did they do what they did, and how can you add more value to that transaction? And I think that's where the money shot is.
Jakub, you're head of digital banking and the applications domain. Are you taking into account these type of client journeys, or?
Well, yes, definitely yes. I mean, we are. I must say, me and my colleagues are obsessed about the customer experience. So, you know, we are not at the traditional bank. We are traditional bank with traditional products, but we have our digital applications, digital channels designed by people who love the interaction with the customers. Sorry, who are absolutely focused on delivering the best customer experience possible. And I can tell you that the NPS of our digital channels is way higher than the NPS of the overall bank, because of this focus on the digital customer experience. And you ask who's going to win, and this, well, I think the customer wins at the end. It's you know, we are under pressure from the competition. I think the competition is quite fierce in Poland, has been fierce for the last 20 years in the banking industry, and we are always watching the new next nice features or nice functionalities of other banks. And we are trying to improve what we are offering to our customers all the time. So now with the additional players like N26 or the others, it's getting more interesting.
What about the big IT firms? Apple Pay, WeChat, Alipay.
Yeah, I mean, Apple Pay has entered Poland and actually taken Poland by storm. Yeah, we have it, and it's super useful. Everybody now, you can see in a cafe, in a shop, people just taking out their phone and paying with a phone, and it's wonderful. So we basically, our bank has basically adopted it because it's good for the customer. The others, we don't see them.
I think what's interesting though about it, because we had exactly the same experience. I mean, Germany is probably the most anti-digital payment country. It's a really great place to put the headquarters of a digital bank. But I mean, you struggle to get through a day without using cash. in Germany.
Yeah.
That said, the day that we launched Apple Pay in Germany, we had 250,000 tokenizations in one day.
Wow.
And even Apple Pay called us up and was like, Spiros, put the quote down. Even Apple called us up and they were like, whoa, what is going on there? And I think what it showed was that our customer base is kind of hungry for this kind of innovation. I think the bit that we need to be aware of is that, and I was showing this to someone last night, so the way we think about Apple Pay is you double click and you pay. Which is the functionality that Apple Pay shows us that they can do. But if you go into the wallet app on your phone of Apple Pay, actually there is a lot more functionality in there than Apple expose in a double click gesture. There is just as much information about the transaction, the geolocation, whether you can report a transaction. I think the danger comes when they decide now's the time to play. Don't think they're not working on it, right? They're working on it very hard. And when they come time to pull the switch, all of a sudden, like they'll change their interface over and they will have a transaction list. And that's when I think the consumer kind of relationship is put at risk because the trust comes from a consumer's perspective. I don't think they care if you have a banking license or not. I don't think they know what that means, honestly. The insurance-backed side of it, the business side. But from a consumer's trust perspective, you show them that you know stuff about them, that you're sharing that transparently with them, that you're giving them actions that they can take with that data. They feel empowered, while at the same time not realizing, why does that company have all that information about me, and should they?
So how quickly can I open up an account?
With N26?
Yeah.
8 minutes.
Yes.
That's fast.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe to test the audience, who's using these type of higher? Oh. Everyone is quite digital savvy.
I think what's interesting is that it's a different proposition as well, because I say 8 minutes and it sounds really cool, right? It is really, really cool. I think one of the things about, breaking down the barriers was that, the world is changing and people are moving countries and they have different needs, and the banking industry wasn't providing solutions to that. I mean, if you can't get a bank account when you move to a different country because you don't have an address yet, but you can't get an address until you've got a job to pay for the down payment, but you can't get your salary paid because you don't have a bank account yet, like that is not a problem that we should have right now in the time that we live in. So I'm very passionate about solving those kind of problems. But at the same time, something that takes 8 minutes to sign up for has a very low friction associated to it. Whereas if it takes me 3 trips to the Commerce Bank account and signing 4 different documents and then going to have to verify my identity at the embassy, I promise you I had to do that, and paying 40 euros to have that done, I'm probably going to think twice about closing down that account. So there are pluses and minuses to both sides.
Yeah.
I think, low friction is low friction both ways.
So Andres, if we talk about that whole transformation process, what did you come across as the main challenge? Because simply starting from scratch with all the new technology, that sounds rather easy if you have to deal with all the legacy and complex.
Yes, and I think many of all of the bankers here know the pain, and I describe it as, changing an airplane's engine while flying the plane. This is what we try to do in the incumbent banks. You have to transform, and at the same you have to run it, and you have to run it safely, and you only have this much money to spend every year to actually start the transformation. So I think there are no good answers. There were the attempts to create a little bank on the side, and then migrate your business to this little bank once it becomes not so little and mature. But I think it has not happened anywhere, actually. The other way is to, isolate your core, the legacy systems with API and start rewriting the outer layer, It's a typical approach, but it's also extremely time-consuming and costly. So there's no easy answer, as we all know. I think what is important is, but it is possible and we have to do it. So I think what is important is first to create a sense of urgency. I think not all the banks feel the sense of urgency. Not all the boards feel the sense of urgency. I have a view of the Santander groups, and we have different CEOs in different countries. And the level of kind of sense of urgency is simply different. We can see that. But I mean, so the sense of urgency is I would say, first. The second is be conscious of the resources it all needs. I mean, it's not an easy thing. And when you start on the journey, you have to plan for it. And there is no illusion that it's easy or cheap. Yeah? But you have to do it. It's a matter of survival. And the third is you have to put together the business, IT, risk, working together. You know, we did it by transforming the bank into agile squads and tribes. And I think that's the previous attempts of transformation were kind of not so very successful because people were doing these things on their own. Once you start doing it together, I mean, it's not a guarantee of success, but it is I think it's a must-have.
Last night we were also with Tim talking about the hearts and minds and the clear vision. Yeah. What's your secret ingredient for all of this?
Yes, I mean, aligning the people around something. I mean, because we are big organizations, you know, 5,000 people, 10,000 people, and it doesn't work unless we are all aligned, you know, in the same direction. Yeah? So yes, a vision, very much, very much. I mean, I think what we did was part was a vision of becoming the best bank in Poland. We are still working on this. But there's also the other element, the board saying, if you are not following this direction, then you are not with us. And this also helps a lot.
Jakub, how's that with PKO Bank?
Well, actually, the team building, especially our mobile application and mobile banking experience, is proud of what they are doing. So they are promoting their work, as we were talking yesterday. Actually, our mobile application is the number one banking application in the world according to Retail Banking International. Retail, yes. This is a magazine. I don't know it in Poland, but it seems that they created the ranking, and 2 years in a row, our application was the best one. And what I can see in the team is well, they treated the application as their own. It's not the application of the bank they work for. It's their application. So sometimes I need to calm them down because. Especially, I have one of my analysts. He's always saying this is his app, and whenever a vendor is coming and suggesting some new solutions and bringing some new toys, this guy is saying, "Look, in my app, we are not doing something like this." Yeah? And so it's
that's ownership.
Yeah, that's ownership.
So not like this morning we're talking about artificial intelligence and chatbots and all that fancy virtual assistants. So are there any plans to incorporate that, or?
Yes, we have a lot of POCs, pilots, in our app, especially in the mobile app. We are piloting a voice bot, chatbot, right now. So we believe it's the next best channel for customer interaction. We are also adding. I like the China's mobile revolution topic because I can see a lot of similarities there. We are adding a lot of non-banking features, non-banking functionalities, services to our applications. we are integrating. Well, we are helping our customers in their everyday experience in the digital world, and our public administration is unfortunately has been lagging for many years in this digital services area. So we helped our customers to access the public administration digital services, which were quite closed before. So we are trying to assist our customers in whatever they need to do in the digital world or in the physical world, because we are also selling the public transportation tickets in our mobile app. So they can use our banking app to get on the metro in Warsaw, and they don't need to queue to any automat or vending machine.
So if we do some time traveling to the year of 2025, how then does your world look like, Andrej?
Oh, I think, well, we will. I mean, it's really difficult. It's really a difficult question. But I think some of the technologies that today we talk about, but are not yet so mature, I think by that time they will be mature. So we talk about AI, chatbots, all these things. But frankly, today, in most cases, I wouldn't dare put these in front of the customers yet. They're all nice conference topics, but not for the customer. And I think by that time,
Really?
they will actually mature, yes.
How come?
Yeah, it's
Well, why?
well, you know, the chatbots, I mean, they usually talk stupid stuff to customers.
Make a better chatbot.
Yeah. We did video. I mean, it's like simple things. We did, identification of a customer by video. Because when you show your ID through video, it should be a proper identification and confirmation of someone's identity. In reality, sometimes it's too dark. Sometimes the camera doesn't work so well. Sometimes
Camera never works well.
sometimes
Take that as an assumption.
So all these things they are nice, but I think they need time to actually mature and kind of become robust. And yes, I think they will all work in 2025.
I guess my challenge is who's going to make them work?
No, we will, but
Behind the scenes.
it just needs time, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I think that's probably one of the big differences. So we have a testing mindset, right? And I think we do have a different user base, so I totally acknowledge that as well. But for instance, we have Photo KYC. One of our channels is a Photo KYC. And we know that video is more secure. Often, but video has its own problems with Wi-Fi connections and videos dropping down and things like that. So for instance, recently we integrated what we call liveness detection into our Photo KYC process. So you take a video selfie in your Photo KYC process so that we can actually tell the liveness of the person, and we use AI to determine whether that video selfie is, but it doesn't have the same problems of a video streaming conference call, because you don't have to worry about the video quality connection, which a lot of people don't have when they're signing up for a bank account. But I mean, I think that if we talk about kind of 2025, where do I see this going? I want N26 to be an environment, right? An environment where people interact. And I think this is where a lot of platform-based services are going to go. So there's either the environment beneath the surface or there's the environment above the surface. And I think if I could predict where I would like this to be in 5 years' time, it would be that we have a space where people feel confident and in control of their financial situation. And I know it sounds fluffy, and I know it sounds, it's not specific enough, but the emotion is what the users are looking for. Trust is an emotion. Trust isn't something that is two pieces of data added together. And so how do you create that environment? And I think this is all of our challenge, whether it's the environment in the branch or whether it's the environment online, to create a place where the consumer feels like they're in control of what's going on. It's flexible enough that it bends, and that's where personalization comes in. And really the way that they want service is optional to them, and this is where the different technologies come in. We talk a lot about omni-channel. It's not about which channel is next, it's about how many channels can you offer, because not everyone is going to want to use the same one.
And if we talk about those differences in different channels, if we look at the different generations, the Generation Z and the baby boomers.
And so that's when you need to have a
Different
really
needs.
strong customer segmentation strategy as well, because you're not going to be able to give the level of service required to everyone. So you need to know who your customer is and what it is that makes them feel confident and in control.
And I think we are in a constant fight for keeping the relation with the customer. So all we are discussing now, the customer experience, is basically a way to defend the bank from losing the contact with the customer. You asked about the tech giants. We have, even if Andrzej doesn't believe it, we have Alexa, we have Siri that are improving from month to month, and they want to take the interaction with the customers from us. So it's important for us to give better experience than the tech giants are giving. So this is going to be challenging for sure, and the banks are going to be more and more technology companies that serve the customers, offering financial products, but not only financial products, helping them in their everyday life.
So what you're saying is, there will be much more integration and cooperation in platforms and cooperation with the tech players and integration of that. So how to manage those partnerships? Because that's a new challenge, because in the past everything within banking we could do ourselves, but now it's teaming up with other players. So how to best do that?
Yeah, that's a big challenge, because ultimately, if the bank uses a partner to provide a service, I mean the banks endorses the partner, and the banks takes responsibility for whatever happens in the environment of the partner. So yes, and this is also quite regulated. I don't know about other countries, but in Poland the bank can only outsource to one outsourcer. And this outsourcer cannot outsource to any other outsourcer. So there is, they are on a very tight leash, and they are actually liable to the full, and they cannot limit this liability, even if they wanted to. It is illegal to limit the liability. So in this case, the law helps a little bit. But I think it is a mixture of creating, of having a good contract, and it's not easy to write a good contract, and also establish trust with the guys. I mean, one does not go without the other, and we need to basically trust these partners, and we have these partners already. We use companies to. For example, to issue an invoice. Our SME customer can, click a button in our internet site and basically issue an invoice and get things like this. And this is done through partners. It's super convenient, and they actually love it. So we will rely more and more on such partners.
Yeah, I mean, I think that from a partner perspective, I certainly. I've learned a lot from you guys over the last couple of days, just of the sheer number of partners, not just from a products perspective, but from a development and outsourcing perspective. But from a product perspective, I think whatever path you go down, the only important thing to know is that from the consumer's perspective, so the thing that we fear about the Googles and the Facebooks, that they will start to own the consumer relationship. Well, until that happens, we own it. And so no matter what happens within your walls, you're responsible, regardless of if it's downstream to third parties. Unfortunately, we don't have that legal benefit. They can outsource all they like. So I think that's where you have to be really careful with your third-party strategy, not only from a provider perspective, so your payments, services, and things like that, but also from if you do go down an ecosystem or a marketplace route, know that you're handing your brand identity over to someone. So you need to be sure that it's not just, this is why kind of the traditional marketplace of the last 10 years where you just kind of aggregate services won't work for us, because there is a responsibility that comes with being a banking entity. And you can't just aggregate a list of people and say, hey, here you go, whatever happens to you is now your responsibility. It's not how it works. So, but I also think that while that is a constraint, it's also an opportunity to have an endorsed third-party strategy. Use your brand to, give options to consumers.
Yeah. Sorry, just one
I love
one sentence. It's the fact that bank has the trust of the customers, and you can say that the banks have lost the trust in the last 10 years and so on, but I think they still are much more trusted than the small fintechs. And this is the unique competitive kind of feature that the banks have. I mean, the banks are trusted, and you would entrust your data and your money to a bank, but you would not necessarily entrust the same things to a small fintech. And this is something that the fintechs will, for a long time will not yet have.
We are still focusing on, a kind of traditional banking model in terms of payments. I've done some work in the past years also with regards to just revising a complete new model in terms of working with distributed ledger technology, working in ecosystems. What's your view on that? Is that a new reality?
Distributed ledger, kind of. I think it's been a big noise, but I don't think it's actually materializing very much. In Poland, we have the requirement of giving the customer the product regulations and the tariff on indestructible data. Yeah? And everybody was thinking, oh, we will do it now on distributed ledger because this is really indestructible. But then someone came with a warm memory. Yeah, it's read many times, write once. Simple, cheap, and now the entire idea of the distributed ledger, it just went away in a minute. Yeah. So I think the distributed ledger is going to have some niche applications, but not widespread.
And actually, we have implemented distributed ledger.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe because we were
starting to think
promoting this solution, and actually, it was an interesting time in Poland when the banks were discussing which solution for storing the customer information, customer correspondence is the best one. We went for distributed ledger just to be honest, to have a real life test of what we can get. We've built some experience. We have a solution that was awarded a few times, which improves the morale of the team, which is important. And yes, and we are thinking about the new applications built on distributed ledger right now. We are approaching some tokenization of assets. We'll see where we go. under umbrella of our innovation team. So it may fail, it may be successful. We will see.
Okay. If you would provide this audience with a tip to reach the future of digital first banking, what tip would you give them?
Hire the right people.
Yeah.
Honestly, it doesn't happen. People are what is going to drive this industry forward. So I think everyone has their own constraints in their organization, whether it's leadership, whether it's middle management, whether it's the people on the ground with the right mindset. But you need to work out what is going to drive you forward. And I think that learning mindset is the most essential thing that you can build into your organization, because if someone is just happy with the status quo, they're going backwards at this point. And one of the most important things for me was I came into a tech organization. And a year and a half ago, N26, one of the reasons I joined was because their pitch was, we're a tech company that's doing banking. And as a tech person, that appealed to me. And 3 weeks in, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. And I think what we've done in the last year and a half is we've gone from 1 million to 5 million users is really changed the mindset of the organization. We are a bank. We changed our internal branding. Our internal purpose is giving people the power to live and bank the way that they want to. It's not just move money around or manage finances. It's bank. And it's a really, really important word because there's a responsibility associated with it. What's difficult about identifying as a bank, for me, is bringing people on who understand the constraint that the regulation brings. Because there is two different ways to look at constraints. One is that it's a field to be safe in, and it's a fence and you play in your field. And then the other way is that it's an area to be creative in, and how can you push against those constraints to make sure that what you do within that space is so much better than it could have possibly been before. And if you talk to designers, they talk about no one came up with a good idea when you gave them a blank page. If you give them a constraint to work within, it has to be yellow and you have to use this type of pen and it has to be this. The stuff that people come up with is incredible because they're working within a field that they have to get creative in to reach the goals that they want to achieve. And when I'm hiring people, my interview was about kind of bringing the tech mindset and how do you push the boundaries and what if and why not. I think I'm pretty much Georgie, why not Smallwood in my organization. But you also need to hire people who are energized by that constraint, right? Who are like, okay, throw me the challenge, I'll show you what I can do with that. Because constraints can be incredibly slowing. And it can just become something that is the norm and it's the regulation, so we have to do it.
Okay, so people, Andres, for you, tip?
I think there is always a good reason, not to do a project, not to undertake some risk or some change. And I think your management board, and we are management board here mostly, they must not listen to this. They must be quite ruthless and decisive about launching all these transformation programs. They have the responsibility actually for defending the bank and leading the market. So, they have to be super decisive.
So, C-suite decisions.
Absolutely.
People, Jakub, for you?
Well, I think people also. We are in the there is a war for talent in Poland. There are many players in our market. We are competing against all the tech giants to hire the engineers. And if we want to be a company that is supporting the lifestyle of our customers with technology and having their finance under control, we need engineers. And it's becoming, when you are a regulated environment with a lot of constraints, it's not easy to convince people that you are doing great work, because especially the young generation, they would like to come with their toys and play in our playground, and it's not going to happen in the bank, basically.
So a little bit of fun.
Yeah. Yes, we are giving them some fun, but not too much.
Not too much. Within the regulatory boundaries. Okay, I got my signal that I have to round off. So questions for this audience?
I have a question with regards to legacy, which is often said to be one of the things which is holding back the bigger banks in being innovative. But N26, I think now you also have a history of 6-7 years that you exist. How do you look at legacy, and is it already holding you back, or how do you avoid that you end up in the same situation as we as the big banks are?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so yes, we have tech debt. So simple answer. I don't think any technology company doesn't, if they're older than kind of a year and a half and they had any version of success. I'll give you an example. Like when you're a startup, you don't build your transactor service thinking that, I mean, maybe they did in their pitch, but thinking that you're going to be pumping 5 million users through it within 5 years. Because why would you architect something to that extent and kind of delay your launch by a year, potentially? So we address tech debt as we go, or what you call legacy. It's a big part of our program of work, and we try to keep around 30% of our capacity to deprecation. While we also, wherever we can, when we're building new functionality, we also include the deprecation if it's in a microservice that we want to reinvent, or if it's in a different API or something like that. So we have a commitment to, the product business has a commitment to the engineering organization that is built into the capacity of the estimation. Now sometimes we need to make a commercial decision, and that's when I'll ask for options and what the cost of the hack is. But that's okay. But you also need to recognize when you're making a hack and what the cost is, and you also need to go back and rectify that. Historically, I worked at a global software company which had been around for 10 years and had never addressed the technical deprecation schedule as they'd gone along, and they had 10 years of tech debt, which now meant that they released 3 and 4 times a year and had to line up 27 technology teams to do it. So I've seen what happens when you don't grow your organization sustainably. Yeah. Especially in this world of hypergrowth is even more important. You can't keep adding users and kind of, well, in our case, transactions and logins and all of this thing to your services and not expect it to take its toll. So if you want to continue and you want to be a sustainable organization for the long term, then you need to build that into your strategy and have that as an open conversation with your board as well. Yeah.
So all of us, it's not going away, facing legacy. Any more questions?
To you, Eugenia. Like in the Netherlands, the bank we work for and the more banks are heavily under pressure of the regulator concerning the know your client and also the exit process and all the monitoring. In the Netherlands, it's nothing compared to your size of the N26 size, but there's a small online bank.
Yep.
We see people that we exit, they flat or they move to Bunk. Would you say that you have tackled that? You have tackled the same pressure we get as a bank to monitoring our clients, to have all this process in place?
I mean, let me assure you, we have the same pressure from the regulator, probably more so, right? So I think that What is fantastic about the German banking regulator is that they know that the industry is changing, right? It doesn't mean that they, on a day-to-day basis, kind of want to deal with the implications of that, but they work quite closely with us. Now there's things that we've mucked up, right? For sure. You can't move this fast and not do it. And we have had to do some pretty crappy customer experience things as a result. Like, would I have liked to not re-KYC 200,000 people? Sure. But we are held to exactly the same level of regulation. So I think that and now with 5 million customers, it's also, this is not a startup that is kind of going away anytime soon. So it's even more important that we hold the responsibility we're at the same level. So it's interesting though, because I think that from a consumer perspective, there is certainly the perception that if you go with Deutsche Bank, it's safer than going with N26. But the reality is we're held to the same account. And we have to hold the same. We have the same servicing, the same AML tooling, the same all of that. So it's an interesting dynamic because there's a brand association as well with, I mean, we're a challenger or a neo or a digital. We're still a bank. And so it's interesting because you have a traditional and legacy and other things. Well, we have all the same things, just on the different side of the coin. So I think one of the reasons I came to this conference was, I mean, regulation is something that really does hold us back as an industry. And I think if we look to China, sure, maybe we don't want to do everything that the Chinese do, but certainly if you look at regulation as risk mitigation, none of us want to do things to the detriment of the consumer. That's not good business. But if we have to wait 6 days to inform someone that fraud has occurred on their account, and we can't say anything in the meantime, but they're used to getting instant notifications on Instagram, like, we're a little out of sync in how they are getting their information. And so as an industry, I think we do have a responsibility to also help the regulator to understand how we can continue to be secure, in fact, be even more secure, but using different ways of doing it.
Instant monitoring.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Final question.
Last one, this will have to be.
I always take the last questions. I wait. No, we spoke about the client, we spoke about the regulator. Just wanted to frame the discussions around our shareholders. Okay. Most of our banks or challenger banks were communicating that we're investing a lot of money into digital transformation in the hope or in the expectation that that will bring results further down the road, right? And my question to you guys is, how far along are we, or how far are we into reaching those objectives, right? And those objectives are quite simple in a way, right? You're talking about being close to the client, you're talking about retention, but as far as we see it, we haven't actually seen significant results from that investment. So what's your view on that? Are you seeing tangible, sustainable results?
Well, actually, some analysts, at least, are expecting us to run digital transformation. We've been in the digital transformation for many years now, although it wasn't the digital transformation meant as agile tribes, squads kind of thing. We were simply focusing more on the digital experience of the customers. Now we are also transforming ourselves in terms of organizational structure to better reflect the trends, I would say. So I would say it's an expectation from the market to do it. Do we have tangible results? I believe we do. Our results are improving from year to year, from quarter to quarter. the customer satisfaction is growing. So at the end, we have stronger relation with the customers, and so at the end, it should pay back.
I think the the valuation of banks, it's kind of flat. Why is it flat? I think because there's an expectation that they will transform fast, and they don't. I think this is what the analysts actually expect. In terms of kind of the leading indicators of financial performance, I think there are two areas. One is the fight for the customer, but frankly, if everybody's kind of progressing into digitization and fighting for the customer in more or less the same way, then you do not see much at this end. But where you see the impact is that digitization actually forces you to digitize your internal processes, get rid of paper, automate, robotize, whatever you do. And I think there is a substantial impact on the cost base.
So I would add one thing, because of some historical reasons, the customer base of our bank was getting old, and we were losing customers for natural reasons. So for us, it was absolutely important to target the young generation, to build a bank that is appealing for them, and the fact that we stopped losing the customers is also a proof that it makes sense. So we were able to manage our customer base. We have still a gap in one generation because of the transformation started around 10 years ago. So we lost one generation, but we have a few 100,000 kids using our banking applications for children. We have our banking application for schools, for classes. So we are investing in the future of the bank. So it must pay back.
All right. I think a big applause for all of the insights.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you, Georgina. Thank you, Jacob, for your insights and sharing all of your advices and tips for this audience.